Before we begin the video, a few things need to be said. First, I did not edit this video, and that's why it doesn't seem like one of my typical videos. This video was edited by Mudstep, an editor on the GDS team, so if you feel like thanking anyone for the outstanding editing job, thank him, I guess. However, I did do a bit of the editing in the version you are seeing right here, so if it randomly changes in style, that would explain it. Second, I am aware that the video took a while to come, and that's fine. I explained this earlier in my update I posted not too long ago, but most of you haven't seen it because YouTube demonetized it. God damn it, YouTube. Third, why is this show low-key an anime now? Like really, watch the new intro. Like, that's an awesome intro, but really, is GD Science actually an anime confirmed? Well, looks like it's a good time to change my name to Caustra-san, but for now, enjoy the rest of the episode, I guess. Hey guys, this is Caustra here, and welcome back to GD Science, the show where I rip off game theory and make money off of it. Anyways, I have an interesting topic brought to my attention by one of my viewers. From now on, I will start taking more request ideas, so if you guys have ideas that you want me to look into, please leave them below. This episode was inspired by EmitGD, and he asks what everything in the game is made of. Now, from all the suggestions that I have got so far, this one stuck out like a sore thumb. It's not really something people talk about, but that's also because it's a $5 platformer game that totally isn't a bootleg impossible game. Anyways, I thought it would be an interesting subject to talk about. So, before we can really determine anything, we need to figure out the temperature that the GD world is. This is important because then we can use the states of matter to figure out potential materials for each object. Since we can never be sure on some things, we have to make a few small assumptions. First of all, we have to assume that the temperature of fire is the same in real life and in Geometry Dash. Second, we have to assume that water in Geometry Dash has the same freezing and boiling point as water in real life. Third, we have to assume that any recolorations of the water decoration are just colored variants of the water and not a completely different liquid. With those three rules out of the way, we can start the process to solving this. So, as you probably all know, water freezes at 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius. But you also probably know that water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit or 100 degrees Celsius. That means that the water's temperature needs to be between 33 and 211 degrees Fahrenheit or 199 degrees Celsius. That's a good start. However, it is important to note that temperature will change from level to level. Fire or lava themed levels will probably have a hotter temperature, and other levels will probably be a bit cooler. From what we know now about a potential temperature range, we know a few things. On the low end of the scale, the blocks could almost be any metal except for mercury and bromine. On the high end, the only other metal that gets knocked off the list is gallium. However, temperature isn't the only lead we can follow. The material that makes up blocks is clearly not very strong, as even the slightest friction from them causes instantaneous wear, as indicated by the particle effects. So, we're not dealing with a very strong material. So if we're dealing with some kind of metal, it's most likely a variant of gold or bronze. However, if it was some type of rock, things start to add up a little more. Some of the softest rock-like materials are talc and gypsum, as indicated by the Mohs scale. The reason this is important is because a human fingernail is rated 2.5 out of 10 on that scale. Both talc and gypsum can be scratched by a fingernail, and this is important not only because we have found a potential material for some of the blocks, but it also shines a light on what the icons might be, which I may do a video on another day. Point is, I'd like to say that the white outline objects we see in the game are probably either talc or gypsum. This explains a bit on their coloration as well, because talc is specifically white. I'm not saying all blocks are talc, because it is easy to see that many of the blocks are composed of a different material. But what I'm saying is that for the majority of ambiguous blocks with white outlines, it appears that they are some type of talc. Now, let's get into the more interesting stuff. What makes orbs and portals? There are a few interesting points to mention with these ones. First of all, the orbs are a state of matter that doesn't currently exist in the real world. It has the properties of gas because we can pass through it, and because it doesn't appear to be affected by gravity. However, nothing in Geometry Dash really appears to be affected by gravity. It also has properties of a solid because it can hold its own shape. However, when we look at it a little differently, we can actually get a scientific explanation to what they are. To make this simple, I need to define something very quick. A toroidal vortex is a vortex in the shape of a torus, and it consists of some type of liquid or gas. If you don't know what that is, just imagine an onion ring made of gas. Got it? Okay, moving on. My theory is that every jump orb is actually a toroidal vortex, and whatever gas it's made of causes a light to appear in the center of the vortex, which is what you see when you're looking at the orb. Imagine the white outline as the mysterious gas that makes up the vortex, and imagine the coloration of the orb to actually be the byproduct of the light emitted from the gases in the vortex. This would explain a lot of things, from being able to pass through it to holding its own shape. You can pass through it because it's a gas, but it holds its shape because of the flow of motion around the gas, holding it in the shape of an onion ring. From this inference, we can determine two different results. The first one is that jump orbs could be some type of neon gas. Neon gas does have a tendency to glow under the correct circumstances, but so far those circumstances don't really align with the temperature we've determined earlier. Second is that jump orbs consist of a gas that doesn't exist in the real world, with incredible luminescent properties. Another theory is that the orbs are made of ionized particles that conduct electricity and are being held together with an electromagnetic field, which would also explain the glow. Finally, let's talk about the portals in this game. These are by far the hardest objects in the game to explain with science. They could be in a gaseous state because you can pass right through them, but as you clearly see in the game, they're a ring shape, which means they could also be solid theoretically. But the more complicated part comes from the ability to change the player's mode. So, here's my first theory. I think that they are some type of solid, but whatever they are, they're intensely radioactive. It would make sense. These things give off so much radiation that it causes instantaneous change in the player's mode, hence the different game modes. My second theory is that, much like the name, they are some type of portal. I'd have to assume some type of wormhole. It explains a bit with the mode transformation, especially the one where the cube rides UFOs and spaceships, but it's confusing as to why it spits out the player back right where it entered, so it's a little tricky to determine if it's a wormhole. Wormholes have an input and an output. They need to go somewhere. Now, this one is more viable with the teleport portal, but I'm pretty sure we all knew that it was a wormhole one way or another. Another possibility is quantum tunneling. Basically, in this scenario, the player wouldn't be traveling a phenomenal distance, but could be going through an alteration in the process. In a real-life example, this happens to electrons during the process of quantum tunneling. So, just to recap, the temperature of the game must range in between the freezing and boiling point of water. The blocks are made of a rock-like structure similar to talc crystal. The orbs are actually toroidal vortexes of an unknown luminescent gas like neon, and portals could potentially be quantum tunnels. Really shines an interesting light on this game, now doesn't it? The most important thing to take out of this video is don't spend hours studying the physics and relations between reality and a $5 game that was originally just a bootleg version of another fairly successful mobile game. Anyways, thanks for watching. This was a more interesting episode to research, and I really do hope everyone enjoyed it. Since I didn't cover everything just yet, I may make a follow-up to it, explaining everything else, as we've really only scratched the surface. And again, really sorry about the wait time. I explained it in my update video. If all goes well, GD Science will be released more frequently, and things will be a bit smoother from here on out. And if any of you are actually still watching this up to this point, my next video should be in regards to Geometry Dash 2.2 and what RobTop has up his sleeve. Make sure to stay tuned for that, as it's certainly an interesting one, because I may have found the song that RobTop is using in 2.2. Oh, and if you're somehow still watching this, remember the words of the wise. Mannix is morbidly obese. Okay, I'll leave now.